I had to ask. He is a liability too. You can't show weakness when it comes to either one of them.
I will not choose between the chancellorship and my son and his father.
I told you what I am here to protect. I am not giving you a choice.
Please transmit tactical analysis of all enemy vessels to us.
Stand by for transfer.
Yodak Yabach, Holt Yakau, Nukhongwe, Helumech, Hak, Jajvam. And I thought my chancellorship would be bloodless.
I'm Mark, he's Brian. This is Mark 2.0 as always, and we welcome Star Trek Discovery star Mary Chieffo to the Mark 2.0 podcast. Thanks so much, Mary, for coming on.
Yes.
Woo! Thank you for having me.
Such a treat to have you. Thanks for being here.
It really is. Brian, you start this thing out because you are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mary, how are you today? How are you today?
Let's jump right in. I'm doing well. I'm coming off of some great creative discussions with some new and old friends, so I'm feeling very inspired. So it's just, I think it's going to be a very fun, creative day with y'all, continuing that momentum.
That is great.
Perfect.
That's great. Well, let me say, I'm a big fan. Number one, I'm a big fan, and I'm a lifetime Star Trek fan.
Excellent.
So, of course, you know, when I saw you, I was moved. I was just completely blown away. But let me get to that later and just ask you first about your mom and dad. Now, I've been learning. I learned a lot about. Everybody watched the video. We interviewed her dad. Her dad, Michael, is probably one of the most pleasure. I mean, I've never spoken to someone who's a stranger where I just got sucked into this conversation so fast. He makes you just feel comfortable. He's happy. He's positive. I was so impressed by your dad and blown away by your dad. And I hear your mom is equally as great and has done just so much. Let me tell you, all of our viewers, Mary's parents have just done so much work. No wonder you ended up being so creative yourself.
Yeah.
So where did you grow up, by the way?
So yeah, I grew up here in LA. I'm based in LA now, and yeah, I grew up in the Valley, in Valley Village.
Nice. I know it well.
It's a great spot.
Did you do college? The college thing?
Yes. So funnily, and this ties in directly with my dad. He went to Juilliard for drama. He was in group 6, which for the drama division, they do like the first drama class was group 1, with Mandy Patinkin and Patti LuPone, to name a few, or 2. But they had the group 1, and then every year they call it group 2, 3, 4. So my dad was group 6. So he was there right near the beginning. And then the smash cut to me discovering that I really wanted to be an actor. My dad, I knew that he had gone to Juilliard for drama, and I was touring other schools. I did start realizing I really wanted a conservatory program for acting, that's what I wanted to pursue in my applications. And we were in New York. Both my parents ended up in New York in their 20s, kind of, you know, being theater people in the village and all that good stuff, and then moved out to LA, where they ended up meeting. But we would visit New York. My dad's from Long Island, and so one of our visits, when I think I was in 10th grade, he said, "Hey, well, do you want to tour my alma mater?" And I was like, "Sure." And I didn't quite know Juilliard as anything other than this school that my dad had gone to. Then, of course, I get there, and I am such a full-fledged theater geek at that point. Kathy Hood, who's the administrative director, incredible, been there now, I mean, I think nearly 30 years. I was able to get a tour of the school, and really, it was a turning point to me, because I was very academically inclined overall, and I loved art history and had a lot of other passions, and my parents were always like, so glad you love acting, but there are other things you can do too. Just wanting me to really make an informed decision. But once I toured the school and really started to understand what a drama conservatory program could be like, I was really inspired to like move in that direction, and ended up applying there. North Carolina School of the Arts, which is another incredible BFA program. Those were my top two. And the whole Juilliard audition process is quite elaborate. They used to have a cut system, but now they just have like a 3-tiered callback. Sort of, you have an initial audition, and then you get called back there the same day, where I auditioned in San Francisco. And then you have a final callback weekend where you actually go to the school and spend basically a weekend with samplings of classes. And really, it's a two-way street, because you're also learning, is this the program for me? And for me, I'm a very movement-based, vocal, as you ultimately see in my work in track and otherwise, that's really where I love to thrive, is full embodiment, and kind of really having that as part of my training was a big goal. And I was lucky enough that through that weekend, they thought it was a good fit. I thought it was a good fit. I got spent 4 years training very intensely at Juilliard. And my dad and I are actually the first drama legacy, which is fun, because no other drama student from the past had their kid apply and get in. If that was because they encouraged them or not. There's a lot of jokes around the trauma of the school.
Oh yeah,
I can kind of go there.
Mentioned it on the podcast.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of offspring. That's actually kind of impressive,
Yeah. I mean, it was such an honor, and truly, I love speaking to this, especially since you did interview my dad, and I agree with what you said, because he's one of my favorite people in the world. It was really beautiful for him to be back literally in the same rooms. I was doing rehearsal projects the first few years. You're not in full productions yet. You're kind of in the thick of exploration and everything. And I did King Lear in the same room that he did Midsummer Night's Dream in second year. And it was a really beautiful, reclaiming of the space. And while he said he was too young to fully understand the trauma when he was there, but he really became a huge active member of the alumni program, especially with the drama division, and with Jim Houghton, who sadly has passed away since then, who was the head of the drama division, really brought a lot more of the drama alums back into the fold. And Jim was a huge proponent of that overall. He was the one that got rid of the cut system when he became the head of the drama division, because he wanted it to be more about the community and the rigor in the classroom, but also that that you're in a safe community where you can express yourself. And so much so that I love that I'm getting to just celebrate my dad. This is like the 2.0 of the M Chifo. But he did end up, after I'd graduated, receiving the Juilliard President's Medal. Along with John Williams that year. They were the two President's Medal recipients because of his activism within the alumni program, and again, being the great person that he is, that y'all interviewed. But that's my long-winded answer to, I went to Juilliard for college, where I really thoroughly studied drama, and I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity. It really did prep me so much for what I ended up doing with Laurel and Trek. And I'd like to believe that what I did with Laurel was in me all along, but having 4 years of such intense training and working with language and all of these different things that I was really challenged with in school just directly led to me being able to speak Klingon and be in those prosthetics and wear that armor and trust that I had the stamina to make it through an 18-hour day.
Oh my goodness. And your dad spoke, Juilliard certainly paid off. You just are so good. And your dad spoke all about Juilliard. Everybody check it out. But what was amazing to me was I first saw the Klingon. I first saw you and all that stuff, and I could see that they had a really, if you don't mind my say so, a very pretty, woman under all that makeup, because when I saw you, I was like, I recognized you.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. And you know what? The whole Klingon thing has been tried and tried and tried.
Yeah.
I've been there since day one.
Yeah.
And I've been there since, I mean, literally seen every phase of it come through. And there is no better performance. There's no better performer. You took the Klingon thing where it needs to go, and it needs to stay there, and everybody needs to like catch up to you now. And it was so great that they put a female character in that lead role. And not only that, it was very cool to see the emotional and passionate side of your character, because of course, if you know Star Trek, that character was altered to look human, and there was a very close relationship with you, and it was really, really intense, and really well written and well performed.
To be meeting. Truth be told, I did not expect to see you ever again.
Nor are you. Signals
Has provided us with an opportunity to talk. I have accepted the truth about us. You are and will always be in love with Michael Burnham. I was in love with folk who sacrificed everything. But that is not who you are.
It's something that really, Discovery has changed so much since season 1, honestly. That I don't really remember much, but what I do remember is you. And may I say bravo to everything you did, because it was just the best Klingon anything that the whole Star Trek thing has ever done. So very, very cool.
Thank you. Or katlo, as we would say.
Gosh.
There we go. I learned how to say thank you in Klingon.
Yeah, and I'm nerdy, like Will Wheaton, I'm nerdy, you know?
Yeah. Wheaton's Scottish nerdy. That's, they're cheers.
And I just watched Picard's, season 3 come out, just yesterday. And I was like, oh, please get those Klingons in there somewhere. But
I do want to say thank you, and I really appreciate what you specifically said, because it was a huge goal, and that coming off of the Juilliard training of do your research and fully immerse yourself in your role and your character and where they lie within the story. Once I was cast, I went through all the Klingon centric episodes. There's comprehensive lists that you can find online, and I had some time before we were going to actually film, and things got pushed a little bit. So I was like, well, what can I do? I can research, I can learn. And I ordered, every different Klingon book that's out there. I even have literally on hand, like The Klingon Way. I have it. I don't know. I've got my blurred screen where that's like all falling apart. But it was just so fun, because it is like researching a historical period, because there is so much info out there, not only about Trek in general, but the Klingon race. Like, it is one of the most fleshed out, if not the most fleshed out, next to probably Vulcan. But there have been so many Klingon-centric episodes, and obviously Moon Beyond Discovered Country, which was a huge inspiration for a lot of the themes in Discovery itself. But it means so much to hear a lifelong fan who really knows the world say that, because that was the goal as an actor, is to be that vessel and be of service, and to bring L'Rell to life. And I agree, it's so awesome to have a female Klingon who's so fleshed out, because one of my favorite Klingons, female Klingons, is Grilka, who has 2 episodes in Deep Space Nine, but her first episode she gets married to Quark, because she can't succeed her husband's line, because of the patriarchal nature of the Klingon culture. And I loved that plot. I thought it was so interesting. And then I felt L'Rell, we got to see those themes so much more expanded, because we got to spend more time with her over the span of 2 seasons. And obviously once she ascends into full power, how she comes up against so much, so much. Wow. L'Rell goes through a lot. Like, as you said, it's never a dull moment for L'Rell. But I am grateful that I've been able to bring so much life to that character, and that we also, not only her being a female Klingon, but that, yeah, the relationship with Tyler. I was speaking to this the other day with someone, but how it is the kind of gender reversal of like the Beauty and the Beast archetype, and how it kind of forces us as a viewer to re-examine why we've accepted that story to begin with, or like what the, you know, anytime you, I think, twist the perspective of a story that we've told in the past, it makes us go, oh, what is the essence of this story? What are we trying to say here? And I've always related to creatures, and again, always loved being fully physical and deeply finding a voice for my character that's different from my own. And Laurel obviously allowed me to do all of that. So it's
you
great
did so much. I mean, one thing that took me was there were parts where they were really talking passionately, and I was like, you could see how after I got used to your makeup, I could see, I'm like, look how pretty she is.
Yeah.
You know, she's so pretty. I can see it right through all that stuff. But then there are times where you're literally in like battle scenes, and you're stabbing, and you're what was all that battling like? Yeah,
so great. And I think that I really got to have so many intimate moments, like the dilithium processor scene, which I liked, when we're like just Klingon flirting, fully in Klingon, but there's definitely like a lot of goo eyes and all that sort of stuff. Like how great that we get to have those moments. But then the fighting, I had a few different fights in the first season. I when Tyler escapes, had a little bit of fighting there with Jane Brooke playing Admiral Cornwell. We got to have some fun stuff, some fighting. And then, and especially this year with the continued ascension of Michelle Yeoh, the fact that she beat me up at the end of season 1 is pretty great. I was already at the time, I was like, when I found out, there's going to be a scene where you're in the prison and Michelle's just going to like beat you up, I was like, oh my God. I was so excited. But that was really great. And she's obviously, no surprise, incredible to work with, both when she's beating you up and when she's just speaking dialogue to you. But really awesome to see such a pro in action when it came to the fighting, was like how she would work with our fight choreographers, who were a wonderful team, and kind of be like, okay, what's the best way to create this move? And I joked, because she was mainly, again, I wasn't really throwing any punches at her, but she was very like, but I need, like, I'm so grateful that you're so present, because you need to react to make me look good. Like, she really respected that it was a dual situation. But then my biggest fight scene was in season 2, the big Laurel episode 3, Point of Light, where it's just like talk about one thing after the next. But that was, we had a 6-hour rehearsal. Like, it was filmed on a Friday. We rehearsed on that Tuesday. And that whole episode was so enormous. And it was the first one back with the slightly newer look with the hair. And my prosthetic did get a little bit thinner, closer to my own face in the second season. So we were there for almost a month, kind of from first screen test with the new look to the completion of the filming of the episode. And it was me and Shazad and Ken Mitchell, kind of, I said it was like Klingon summer camp. We were all in the same hotel, and we would just like run lines and then go have dinner and then play ping pong, and run lines,
great.
All sorts of stuff. But the fight was near the end of the episode. We had kind of filmed all the other big scenes and everything. And I remember too, I had a sinus infection that, like, the 2 days or so before we were gonna rehearse, and I was like, oh God, no, I can't have a running note like with it. But I remember, so that was just a fun side anecdote. But we rehearsed for 6 hours, and it was great, but it was an intense fight. And again, two-handed fighting. Yeah. I was so excited about having to, and then I was like, oh right, like, but I'm not left-handed, and most of my stabs happen to be choreographed in the left. Like, I was just so excited that I was like, oh no, I didn't. And then on top of that, I loved that it was like uneven cobblestone, my garden, which was so cool, such a cool design, but it was like this kind of, and then I'm in heels and obviously a prosthetic and a dress, which was cool. They did design a stunt dress, so it looked the same sort of copper color, but it was much more flexible. They like were able to put, it was so cool. And my necklace too, they were able to create like a stunt necklace so that it looked like the kind of actual jewelry, but if it flipped up, it wouldn't break my mouth or break itself. But it was great. Yeah.
Sometimes it looks, I mean, the contacts, are they really big?
Yeah, well, I forget, they're not the full, like they didn't, fully, there are always some white, and I wear contacts normally. So I actually, and
I can't do
back
it.
to my dad, because he obviously has very big blue eyes as well. And I do not have blue eyes naturally. But when I put those contacts in, I was like, oh yeah, I do see. I kind of have my dad's eyes, except with my mom's eye color.
That's hilarious.
But my eyes were my saving grace in a lot of ways, not only in just that they were a cool part of the Laurel look, but because I didn't have the same dexterity in my prosthetic expression wise that I get when I don't have it on, my eyes were a huge part of how I communicated my inner life. And actually, we'll talk about this, but I produced and acted in a short film that my partner Maddie wrote, and we produced with Dr. Erin McDonald, who's the science consultant for Trek, all of last year. And we were laughing because our editor made the comment, they're like, Mary's eye acting is like really good. And it's like such a specific thing. And I was like, oh yeah, because I spent like 3 years like only being able to act with my eyes, not with just my eyes, but yeah, it really was so helpful, like to realize, oh, a glance here and there, or like, that there's just so much that can be communicated from the eyes. But all that being said, on a technical level, the contacts did not bother me as much. They are painted, so they are thicker than normal contacts, and they do have to lubricate them a lot more than normal contacts. But I was very lucky that my eye shape is just, I respond better to contacts than others. Whereas I know Ken and Shahzad, both just their eye shape didn't cater to it as much. So it was just a little bit more troublesome, and neither of them wear contacts normally. So I just naturally, thanks to my dad's eyeball shape that I inherited.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, the fighting was intense, and we spent, I mean, it was a good 15-hour day, I think, of the actual filming of the fight scene. But I got to do pretty much all of the fighting myself, which was really awesome. And I think particularly because it's such a specific character, anytime I did do stunts, unless it was one that I knew, like there were certain flips and stuff where that's what, you obviously want the stunt folks to do what they're trained for. But because Laurel's movement is so creature-like and regal at the same time, I know both myself and the stunt coordinators were always excited for me to do it when I could, because it's just a little bit of a different energy of how Laurel moves and functions. And it was fun because she is brutal, like you said, but does have a femininity that we as a society might not necessarily place upon a creature or think belongs there. And that's what's so fun, is I think it caters a lot too to how I feel in the world as well. I feel like I'm someone that straddles a lot of gender expectations, and I love that Laurel is like an extreme version of that as well.
In fact, isn't Star Trek so great at doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about Star Trek. They are very inclusive without making it overpowering. The story stands on its own. The science fiction is just great, and they literally are pushing where people have, I mean, even since the very beginning, did Kirk not kiss Uhura on TV? And that was an interracial kiss that hadn't ever happened. And people were like, and to this day, we honor them for that. And it's beautiful how Star Trek continues that tradition, is it not?
Yeah, it really does. And it's beautiful being an actor from this kind of newer era than being at conventions and being able to speak to, especially looking at the women line, anyone from Gates McFadden to Terry Farrell, Nana Visitor, like these actors who, did make so many waves in the shows that they were in, and they're so excited that our generation is continuing to flesh that out even further. Like Trek has always stood for these tenets and themes, and it's just so great that we just keep pulling that thread and pulling that thread. It's like that's the great thing with science fiction is like we're aspiring to create a better world. So of course, as time moves forward, we just keep pushing what that means.
And we see Gates McFadden, spoiler alert, coming out kicking ass like this.
Yeah,
totally. I'm like, oh my, what the heck happened to Dr. Crusher?
Yeah. I know, it's so awesome.
And the Discovery captain with a name like Michael Burnham. You know, it's just it's so great. You know, Star Trek is just it is pushing all the time, and that's what's so great about it. You know,
and
new ideas come out there. How much did you know Star, if you don't mind?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, Mark, you know what she reminds me? I remember talking to Michael. I was like, this guy really immerses himself into this job.
100%.
And this is what you have. This is what you have in common with your father that I can see instantaneously. You sound like a Star Trek fan, but for all I know, you started in Star Trek when you said, "Oh, I can get this job," you know. So tell me, how much Star Trek did you know before?
Yeah, so it's a mixture of a journey for sure. I've always been a passionate geeky kid. I grew up more with fantasy, but definitely love sci-fi. And with my dad specifically, like that was always a treat to go see a sci-fi movie or an action movie or anything like that. Heightened storytelling genre was something I really loved, but I did not know Trek as well. Obviously, it's in the zeitgeist. Like everyone has a certain sense of Star Trek. But I really, the first full journey I went on with Trek was when the 2009, the reboot that J.J. Abrams did, which then upon seeing that and just being swept up in the characters and this nostalgia, because I do think that's a huge success of those films is like the casting and those characters, you just love them so much and you're like, I want to just
the baby is born and it's just like heart-wrenching and
I know that first opening.
I'm like, girls are gonna love this. Everybody's gonna love this.
It's a great one. So from there, my dad had said, obviously that's the original series characters, so went back and I did, watch some of the original films and some, pivotal episodes from the original series. So I was aware of it. And then, obviously then watched when the newer movies came out, subsequently. But then, so it was 2016 when I was cast. That fateful year. That was when once I knew I was going to be a Klingon, that is when I started watching all of the TV show episodes, specifically Klingon centric. And once again, watching the original films and getting re-immersed in that world. And truly with Deep Space Nine, there are so many Klingon episodes, and that's, one of the more serialized of the shows. I started really being like, wait, what's happening with the Dominion War? So then I just kind of started watching the whole show because I wanted to know. And so
the Klingons kind of stole Star Trek, half of it.
They
just sucked up fans whoa, and they started just doing so much of it. Sorry, go on.
Oh yeah, but it is true, and when it comes to also like the fandom and cosplay and everything, I mean, since being the Klingon and the Chancellor, I have, if I do a convention, there's always a Klingon hub. There's so many different, Klingon houses in different areas of the world that I've been, some of whom I have indoctrinated me. I have certificates being an honorary member of House Vampire and other great houses. There's a great, in Ontario, great group of Klingon folks who do a lot of great service work as well, and have done some, went around giving folks Reese's Pieces, because I had mentioned on Twitter that that's my favorite candy, and just a lot of really lovely. And I joke that the Klingon community is that they're the friendly bikers of the Klingon world.
That's hilarious.
Or of the Star Trek world.
They love you.
Because we're all like,
you did so good. I'm not shocked at all. Star Trek fans are like that.
Which is great. But when it comes to me kind of becoming more and more immersed in the Star Trek world, I mean, the beauty of the fact that it's a show that you're not just acting in, you are a part of the community. And I was very active, especially near the beginning, because the show hadn't come out yet, but people knew that I was going to be in it. And then once the first season came out, just on Twitter and Instagram, and then once conventions were happening, it's just such a joy to be able to speak to people who have watched something you're a part of and enjoyed it and enjoyed your character, and be able to literally sit at a booth and talk with folks about what they responded to. It's been such a gift, and I've been on 3 Star Trek cruises where there's like a week long of just being with like 2,000 plus folks who love Star Trek, and it's not just talking about the show. It's just talking about larger themes, and I do Klingon yoga, which is basically with some Klingon shonen, and karaoke night.
They need to get you into Strange New Worlds. That's where you belong.
I would love that.
So good looking. They just do honor to the retro look in that show. You know what I like about this series is they do more honor to the old look of it. Yeah. I think J.J. Abrams it finally got the look it deserved, but it was a bit too changed in some way. I don't know. Yeah. But honestly, what I think is that the series really is where Star Trek is going rather than the movies. That's where I was going actually with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's how it started. That's where it's always lived. Obviously, there are, some of the films, and it's funny too. I think I even read something somewhere at some point about, the way in which Star Trek and Star Wars have always kind of influenced each other. Like if you hadn't had that original Trek, then, there obviously was a lot of inspiration for the Star Wars movies, but then even having the movies then inspired how, the motion picture came to be for Trek. And then, there's just kind of always this ripple, ebb and flow. And I'm a fan of both personally.
Nice. What's weird now is the shows on your television are as good as the movies now. It's like they're like 10-hour movies, So
exactly.
It's like it's gravitating toward that, and ultimately, I mean, I think.
Yeah, and it feels like it's that sweet spot of now Trek can live in the medium it's always thrived in on TV with this new level of just cinema. I mean, what they're able to do with the cameras now, with the cameras, what these kids can do with the cameras. But it is amazing. You just get really gorgeous cinematic experiences, and the way that they're now using, it's not even just green screen. I was just talking about this, but like with a friend, but like how it's the whole kind of VR stuff, and they use this with a lot of Mandalorian, other sci-fi shows, is that you just are able to, as an actor, be fully immersed in the
volume world. They call it.
You don't even have to pretend, that green screen will eventually be this planet. You're actually on the planet. So it's a really exciting time for sci-fi storytelling overall, I think.
Oh, definitely. Is that what do they have you in a situation like that? Because we actually interviewed a few people on The Mandalorian and those short, and they talk about being in the volume, and they're like, you can be in there looking out and you can't tell where the set ends and the screen begins. And so what do you see basically on your sets when you go in? And they're built. They look like they're all built ready live and they're just there. Are they? They look that good live?
I have not been on one of those full sets for Trek. That they started using it after I wasn't on the show. But I've heard from other actors what that experience has been, and exactly that it does it really does allow you. Obviously, as actors, we're always having to do some level of imaginary work, and you work with what you have. I mean, plenty of people are looking at tennis balls and having to emote all the time still. But it's great when you get to have things a little bit less pretend. Like you the more you can feel like you're fully immersed in a world, the better. And even when I was actively on the show, so much of the set was practical. It really was mainly just the space, a little bit here and there, but and certainly the Klingon sets, my whole Chancellor Garden, all that stuff I was talking about before, was very, very practical and real. And actually, just the slight end of the anecdote with the fight was, not only was it cobblestone and I'm doing half the stuff backwards and left-handed and all that stuff, they also had ash falling from the sky.
Oh,
So you've got all these, like, and I don't even know what they were using for the ash, but all this other stuff. But that was all practical. I mean, it was, amazing. They filmed it in a way that looked very
Oh my goodness.
But,
Yeah, you sure earned your keep that, dude.
I never came home from a day on set not feeling exhausted, but in the best way. Like,
Wow. Really, being a Klingon is not easy.
No.
So
all the flames too. I would always laugh about that. Like, because I mean, obviously aesthetically, we always see the Klingons with lots of flames, but for the alien that's so covered in prosthetic, to have all of these like active, super hot flames just like up in your, I would just look at the makeup artist, James McKinnon, our department head, and I'd be like, my face isn't gonna melt, right? Like this, it's not that hot. And he's like, you'll be fine. I was like, you tell me if it feels like it's too hot. But obviously, I think that's part of the design of the
danger being a Klingon too.
Wow.
So, but what I noticed is, again, you really brought that character to life. The fans don't embrace everybody. They embraced you because you killed it. And just now I know why you did. I mean, you really immersed yourself. You did your homework. Talking to you, you were outpacing me on Klingon knowledge by far. And I was like, oh, I sound dumb right now.
No.
And so kudos to you. You just really are just brilliantly. You just did that brilliantly, and I hope, and it's got to be only a matter of time until they go toward that Klingon thing again, because let's face it, Star Trek is just escalating at this point again. It's getting revved up, and the next generation cast, they can only go for so long. Let's face it, I love them, and they are doing such a great job. But I want the Discovery crew to go on, and I want that show, because what I like about that show is that no season is the same. No two seasons are alike, really. And so
absolutely,
they have taken steps to really go beyond the imagination, because sometimes I was just like, geez, where can Star Trek even go from here? And I'll be darned if Discovery doesn't, Strange New Worlds is nice, but they're kind of using that kind of like rebooting things a little bit. But to me, it's Discovery that's really doing the heavy lifting, and characters like yours really need to be fully discovered. And I hope they do that. And I'm gonna just be waiting for that to happen.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate that, and I am so proud to have been a part of Discovery specifically. And again, it's so awesome that there's such an expanse, and I've been, enjoying seeing all the different iterations, and it's so great that there's so much space to have so many different versions of Trek now, and so many different folks who grew up with it and love it, getting to tell, from their perspective. But I'll always be so grateful that Discovery, not only having Sonequa as our lead, like you said, Michael Burnham on so many levels is such a groundbreaking protagonist.
Absolutely.
And how, that first season in particular, I remember just being like, this is such a feminist story, because all of the women, like between L'Rell, Burnham, Georgiou, Admiral Cornwell, like we're the ones that end up kind of resolving the whole thing.
Truly.
In that season. And it's like, if Cornwell hadn't been captured and I knew her, and then she came to me later, and then, and then Georgiou and Burnham and their relationship, and then Mirror Universe, like I love the complexity of that. And I think too, knowing the cast as people as well as their characters, we are a very passionate, geeky cast, from me to Anthony to Mary Wiseman. Like we're all people that really like to sink our teeth into our storytelling. And we were very excited too, being that first flagship show coming back. And with the movies, that was again such a different vibe just from the cast. They weren't necessarily coming to conventions the way that we as Discovery cast were excited to. So I really felt like we were a part of this big wave that was just starting to crest. and just being able to be immersed and interact with folks. And I always love to celebrate Sonequa as a leader overall, because off camera, while she was basically in every other scene, if not every scene per episode, she would host like a game night or just, get folks together for dinner. We're all in Toronto. Most people are not from Toronto. And she would make sure that, everyone on the bridge crew, all the guest stars felt seen, and just really built an ensemble in an environment where with TV, it's so easy to just kind of show up on the day and hope that your scene partner is going to be there. But really, really, and I think, partly because that's who she is as a person, but I think that came off of her experience on Walking Dead, being in a big ensemble with a great leader as well. And you just felt her rising into her, power that she already innately had, but she knew what it meant to be number one on the call sheet. So I'm just so proud that that's the show I got to be a part of. And every day I was on set, and a lot of them, I wasn't interacting with her in scenes. I always felt like I was carrying her energy with me because I wanted to be of service to the story and specifically to her. So I'm glad that you feel that way. And now with Michelle Paradise as the showrunner, is so great. I mean, I think Michelle is an incredible human. And I'm so grateful that we have a woman showrunner, a queer woman showrunner, really getting to take the lead on this show, and continue to flesh out more and more stories there. So glad. I'll always have Discovery in my heart.
Wow, nice. Please just stay close to them and in contact. I know you'll be back. I know it. I just no. But we should probably leave the Star Trek. I'm such a nerd.
No, this was great.
It'll always tie back. It always gets in there. It's great.
Yeah. Are you looking to follow in your parents' footsteps? Because you've done other TV shows. Do you want to be more of a TV actor, and just because your parents have been in everything? Do you want to do the same thing? I mean, I see you doing that. And what's so great about today's time is, think about it. Back then, they had the ABC, NBC, Fox, the streaming platforms. We got Amazon, we got Hulu, we got Peacock, you name it, Paramount. You got such a great opportunity. I think it's going to be easier for you. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's such an interesting time for art because, there's an expanse of opportunity, and yet also I mean, I've been talking with so many different fellow creatives about this lately, because number one, I would say, yes, in many ways, I want to follow in my parents' footsteps as, working character actors, people who've made their careers, and made their lives through acting and through, both of them bringing life to a lot of, unique and interesting characters, both humorous and dramatic. And doing that character work is huge to me, and was inspiring, aspirational as a kid. I'm so glad I didn't get a very superficial idea of being an actor, just being a movie star. I saw acting as something that, was from the outside in, inside out, like an exploration, and something that creating a creative space for me as a kid. I just wanted to keep creating those creative spaces for others. So what my parents set forth energetically for me, absolutely, that's what I want to follow. I think it's interesting, and I'm luckily in conversation with both of them any given day about how the landscape has shifted. So the type of careers that they had don't exist in the same way that they do now, which is, again, both wonderful because there is more space, I think, for content creators, which is kind of my answer to your question. Is that's kind of my biggest passion right now, is being my own content creator. I'm grateful to audition, and in the past year I got to have 2 great guest star roles on Girls 5 Eva and NCIS, and that's thrilling to be a part of, shows that are so celebrated in fun characters at an episode. But then doing this short film that I got to be there from start to finish, and now we're on the festival circuit, and I got to learn so much in the process about the stories I like to tell. I also have this AR project, this retelling of Iago's origin story from Othello, but as a modern woman, and getting to do new innovative technology using XN suits, like type of mocap, and using my theater training, but infusing it in this new technology, like those sorts of just innovative ways of creating my own path. That's what excites me the most. Of course, we're always the thing with that. I was lucky with like this AR project that was Verizon approached Juvee Productions, which was our production company that I was co-created with.
Nice.
And so grateful for Places, especially, you know, Juvee, who is their whole premise is Viola Davis and Julius Tennen's production company, and they're all about giving voice to the voiceless, giving a space for any marginalized group to tell their own story. And I luckily, you know, have been a benefactor of that. And it's just such an honor, especially with Juvee, you know, from producing Woman King this past year and so many other projects that they're putting forth. The fact that this reinterpretation of a Shakespeare play with a male character as a woman is part of their oeuvre is just such an honor. But it's those sorts of things, is being able, and I've witnessed this with my parents throughout my life, is finding like the way to network is not about going to a party and meeting someone who can give you an opportunity just for the sake of it. It's like the way I want to network is to meet folks who have similar beliefs about how art can change people's minds, or at least make us reflect and be a mirror to society, and that are proactive in writing their own content or producing it or directing it, and want to be inclusive. And with our short film, we got the Parody in Action badge from Women in Media, because we had more than 50% women, non-binary, in front and behind the camera. And it was so doable because through the folks that we all knew collectively in our kind of producing team, we met tons of great DPs and tons of great, you know, editors, and we were able to really just we had an embarrassment of riches when it came to our creative team, and that's really where my passions lie. And I just hope there are more opportunities like we had when Verizon is looking to advertise their 5G network, and they're proactively looking for inclusive content. That's where I really want to shout out Verizon, is they are like, no, we don't want just some arbitrary fun little game. That would be great, but we want to tell an interesting story. And they empowered us to like write a song based off of Shakespeare's Othello, but reinvent, you know, it's just exciting when people want to be innovative. And coming off of track 2, because those are the themes of those shows, it's empowered me to do that. And, you know, again, empowering folks in front and behind the camera. But yeah, I think my mom was an active producer until she more fully committed to acting in her 30s. And I definitely think I have inherited that producer nature for sure. I love bringing folks together. And then theater is always kind of my number one love. And that's actually something that my partner and I are really pursuing right now, is just where we in LA can find spaces and create spaces where we can do the theater work that we love. Because for me as an actor, it gets me back to what I did get to do in Trek, because Laurel was such a theatrical character, but just being that fully embodied acting experience, there's just nothing like it. And it's good for my soul.
That character, you did things both big and small. You did them both great, and it was just awesome.
Yeah.
You just nailed it. So, so when did you know you wanted to be? And I mean, you have your parents, of course, and of course your dad comes from all that big family, right? So they're all doing it too. It's like, so you have this whole like your lineage, right? It's just all acting and stuff like that. But did you ever consider anything else? Well,
the fun anecdote that I hadn't fully told, which I'm glad I get to tell now, was because both my parents were actors. I really, for a time growing up, thought that No, I just thought that everyone was an actor.
Oh, I love it.
I thought the way that my dad would be like dressed as a doctor for an audition, or my mom would be like in a lawyer suit or something and like be about to go, do an audition and say, "Hey Mary, do you think I look like a lawyer?" I'd be like, "Yeah, you do, Mom," or whatever. I thought that's like what my parents or my friends' parents were doing as well. But they were just pretending to be these different occupations. And then it wasn't until about 4th grade that like a friend was mentioning their mom being a lawyer or something clicked. And I was like, yeah. And then she comes home and she's just Mom. And she's like, no, she actually studied really hard and is a lawyer. And so once I started to kind of comprehend that in my brain development, I started, actually, my best friend Eve and I, who's still one of my dearest friends, would start to film our imaginary games, basically. We would create these stories, and I actually just found the full feature script that we wrote in like 5th grade of this one premise that maybe we'll rewrite.
Oh, I was just gonna say you have to.
we have a reading plan. We're gonna just hear what it was. But yeah, she had a camcorder, kind of, whatever from that era, and we would film all sorts of stuff and edit it together on iMovie. And then we were doing, school plays. And then I ended up actually through soccer. I was a big soccer player. I was a goalie. And I also helped with the Klingon stuff, I think.
Yeah.
And
you can take a hit.
Yeah. I will throw myself into the flames. But actually, someone who was on one of my soccer teams went to this Milliken Middle School, which I think has since been renamed Louis Armstrong Middle School. But they had a performing arts magnet, and she was there. She was a year older than me, and mentioned that she was there. And I went to a Waldorf school, which was a very kind of specific sort of all-encompassing. We did knitting and woodwork, and had just a kind of like a lot of alternative educational styles that really, I also learned all the mythologies, which I think caters to my love of Shakespeare and heightened text, and Klingon stuff is like, I learned about the Greeks and the Norse myths. So really, really awesome education there. But knew that I was veering more towards a more traditional kind of school. That was kind of in my heart somewhere. I was like, I want lockers and grades.
There you go. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it turned out that this, performing arts magnet also had lockers and grades. And I auditioned and got into their musical theater program, which was a rarity for a 6th grader. So, and I think through that, like, this is like one of many moments where I think my mom has, and my dad, but has noted where she was like, oh, well, she has a passion for it. I worked really hard on did a Rosalind monologue from As You Like It, and saying you can't get a man with a gun from Annie Get Your Gun. Like, and got really immersed in the musical theater world and kind of found my musical theater geek friends, and really enjoyed that in middle school. And I saw Wicked for the first time, and Elphaba is definitely the strongest kind of archetype I think I saw on stage that really made me go, oh, I can be on stage as a lead. And now that I've, been so empowered to be the representation I want to see on the screen, the more I reflect back on, like, yeah, Elphaba was a pivotal moment for me, because I might not have been as empowered had I not seen that particular character on stage. But yeah, I continued my musical theater geekdom, but also was very academically inclined. And like I said, so I did a lot of soccer. I broke my ankle in 7th grade, so I kind of never fully got back into the soccer world. But I was also doing modern dance, kind of Martha Graham inspired modern dance. And then in high school, we got very immersed in the drama program at Campbell Hall, which was the high school I went to. Dr. Josh Adele, Mr. Josh Adele, but he is a doctorate of theater, I would say. Really great teacher who really gave us, he had gone to NYU and done Strasberg, and really gave us his kind of take on all of that. Didn't hold back. and always brought in really, we did a play and a musical every year, and always really great and not typical shows, and really continued to find my theater community there. But I was also I got really into art history. They had a semester-long art history class that you were required to take for graduation at my high school, and I just fell in love with it. I did the summer class between 10th and 11th grade to get it out of the way, and then I was like, no, I want to do more, and I ended up taking the AP class and creating my own independent study my senior year called Women, Art, and Power, and like did 4 different essays examining different aspects of, you know, the way women artists have been empowered or disempowered throughout art history. So that, I would say, when I was looking at other schools, I knew I was most likely wanting to do a conservatory program, but I did also look at a few liberal arts colleges where I could imagine myself kind of, you know, double majoring or something in art history and theater or something like that. That was definitely on the table. But what I ended up finding was my love of art history totally, like, I would often make, like, you know, like a Pinterest board for whatever show I was doing and use a lot of my art history. Like when I did King Lear, and I literally did play King Lear as a woman in my, awesome. I remember really going for all these pre-Raphaelite archetypal, like, goddess women images, because we really went for this primordial Mother Earth image. I literally, like, carried this tree on stage, and just that's one example of, like, because I knew there was this certain era of women being portrayed in this certain way, I kind of really dove into those images and let them inspire me. And so I think they all bleed into each other really beautifully. But I think I always knew that theater was going to be a part of what I wanted to keep pursuing, and acting in general. But yeah, it is interesting to see. My joke used to be, and still pretty much is that acting's the thing I'm willing to suffer the most for. But I think I'm also in a time of, like, reflection too. And as I continue to be more of a producer as well, I'm excited to produce works where I'm acting. That's kind of my biggest goal when I'm producing, is I want to create spaces for me to perform. But I'm also excited to, you know, be at least one iota of what Viola Davis has been able to be for me, which is she's built this incredible career, created this production company, and I've been lucky enough to be one of the creatives that benefits from this company. And as a consequence, out of respect for all that she's created, I'm working my butt off to create the best content I possibly can, be fully immersed. And so if I were ever to reach that level of being able to give that opportunity to someone else who has a different story, a different perspective, or one that I do relate to, whether it be another tall woman, another queer woman, you know, whatever it may be, someone who has a story that I'm excited to support, or someone who has a completely different experience, and how great would that be? But I do love performing. I think I am a storyteller, and so I think a challenge of being an actor is that often we are vessels for stories that we don't necessarily, like, 1,000% believe in, but part of our job is to fully immerse. And even if you don't connect with the story that you're telling outright, or there's things that you maybe take issue with because, well, I wouldn't do that, or this is a story that, this is a trope I don't like. How do you, part of your job is to, how do I personalize this? How do I reimagine it so I can be there and give the emotional performance that this character needs? How can I be of service to at least the character, even if you don't like the story that the character's in? But again, I've been so lucky that with Laurel, with so many other characters I've been able to bring life to, I do believe in the story around them, and also feel a purpose. Again, I said we'd still tie it back to Trek, but with Laurel, in that there are roles where I go, oh, I am the person to tell this part. You know, it's whether it be the mixture of my training and my feminism and the fact that I'm willing to sweat under prosthetics for 18 hours, but that she was a character that could have been very one-dimensional, and that I felt it was my duty to let her be three-dimensional, and have vulnerability and have strength. And those are the most exciting moments, when you get a role where you go, oh, I get to like just fully immerse myself and let it come to life.
And you did a great job.
That's always good too. Big little gold star.
Wow. So you seem to me like one of these people who end up like just like making movies and also starring in them. It's like you're so smart at everything. I mean, Star Trek does that, right? A lot of the actors end up behind the camera.
Yeah, absolutely. Good old Jonathan Frakes, one of many.
Oh gosh, it was exactly who I was thinking of, and I didn't say it. But I don't know. It just seems like it's been so long since season 1. What is there any hope of you going back into the Star Trek world, or?
Well, I certainly have hope.
There you go.
You still want that?
Yeah,
I like it.
I would love
want
that.
That's good.
I would absolutely love it. And I do trust, like you said, I mean, and you look at like the shows of the past and the way the Klingons have come in and out. I think that, I hope that it's a matter of time before, L'Rell or an ancestor of L'Rell, or I don't even know, can appear. I've been lucky enough to do her voice on Star Trek Online, and tell some really, really fun stories there. I think a few episodes ago within the game, they had this really great kind of 2-part Klingon plot. I mean, it had been a longer Klingon plot, but then brought in Tanavik, my son, and then bringing me back. And it was just like the most epic Klingon story. And I just loved doing that. And now I give the mission every episode. I'm the mission giver. That's as L'Rell, which is wonderful, and their whole team there is just so wonderful and celebratory of her as a character.
Games. I always forget about the games.
Yeah,
and the way they are taking over slowly. You just keep yourself warmed up to put all that stuff back on because.
Yeah, exactly. Slightly different. And I did actually in the 2 Star Trek cruises ago. The James McKinnon, our department head, he was also a guest for makeup, and he fully did me up as part of one of the activities on the cruise. And then they had the full costume and everything, and I did photos with folks. And then I was still in it, and I ended up walking around the cruise ship. And like, it was funny because I was just so fully, like, I had the contact. I was literally fully L'Rell. And so I just started like talking like L'Rell and being like, what is this?
Awesome.
And went to the Klingon bar, the Qapla' bar.
Nice.
And like sat in or was standing in the middle and just like talked with everybody as L'Rell for like an hour, which was so great. And really got to like have a lot of like stuff that's implied about L'Rell, but like overtly said. Which was great.
Oh, that was hilarious.
I
bet that got really hilarious as the evening went on.
Yeah, it was great. It was a real crowd pleaser. But yeah, I mean, like moments like that are just so wonderful and great, and seeing the fan response.
When was the last time something happened with that character that you did something?
Well, most recently, the Star Trek Online story was most recent, and yeah, I mean, every few months I go in and record the mission for the next episode. So I'm not fully immersed in the story itself. I'm the mission giver, so I'm not. It's not a full L'Rell plot, but I guess 2 years ago now that I think about it, because we're in 2023 now. That's what we did, and what was really fun was. A few months later, after we'd done the kind of recording of the big Klingon episodes, they asked if I wanted to do a Klingon rock song, basically, like a heavy metal. They had that. They had it written by somebody else, and he was going to record it. And then they were like, "Wait, Mary's a singer. Would you want to do it?" And so I ended up like working on and performing the Klingon version of this heavy metal song, Klingon song. So we did that as well. So that was around that same time in like the middle of 2021, I think. Yeah. And again, like she is always with me in like when I'm at conventions, and I'm actually within arm's reach. I have this great cardboard cutout of Laurel.
There you go.
Awesome.
Nice.
And I'll do cameos and that sort of stuff, and get to kind of be Laurel and read from my Klingon way. And what's fun is I did, take a long time to develop her dialect based off of the Klingon language and the different sounds that are innately within the Klingon language. And so it really is very like kind of ingrained in me now. So bringing her out at any given point is always really fun. Yeah.
It does my heart. It just pleases me so much that you like it, that you love it.
I do, yeah. And again, it really made me realize how much the sort of physical embodiment of characters, and that I do love creature work. I mean, Doug Jones is an icon in his own category, but the fact that I got to work with him and speak with him about his experiences is incredible. But I definitely know that it's just inspired me and made me excited when I did this mocap for the Iago project that I created, that like that level of immersion of physical self is something that I really, really enjoy, and caters to my, soccer past and my other training past, that I do want to be fully embodied in a character. And it's just so great to learn that in one's career. Oh, this is something I want to pursue. And really, yeah, it brings me the most joy.
Wow. Well, you've done every aspect of it. If you had to settle into one thing, what would it be? Yeah. There's no way you're going to be able to answer that.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I am in a moment of reflection. I mean, I think from kind of the pandemic shutdown, there was such a moment of reflection in so many ways about what are we passionate about? What do we want to pursue? And I do more and more, and again, having this more recent mocap experience, doing creature work, doing again fully physically immersed stuff. Why I also really want to be doing theater right now is just being in spaces. And I think coming out of the shutdown is part of it, is like being viscerally connected to another actor is just such an amazing experience. And anytime that I can do that, even if it's a kind of interpersonal contemporary play that's not, some big theatrical Shakespeare, but just being able to be like present in a physical space with another actor and then with an audience. I'm just really craving that kind of energy, I think, because we were so lacking in it for such a wildly long period. But I do the strong archetypes. I think more specifically answering your question outside of creature work, like I do say I want to be a female Kylo Ren, tying it into Star Wars, is these gray characters, which I think, Laurel definitely got to be that type of character who is true to herself, but still uncertain of where she lies. Like, I mean, what I do enjoy about the Kylo Ren archetype is someone who I think lives in this very black and white binary world where you're good or bad. And by having any flavor of bad in oneself, you suddenly go, well, I must be bad then, as opposed to understanding that there's just so much more of a spectrum of experience. And a lot of anger comes from that. And I'm a Scorpio. So I definitely resonate with the kind of characters that do have that aggression and brutality and fire in them. And whether they were able to contain it or not is kind of always the question for the audience. So that like in a specific type of character, that's something, and again, in a heightened world, whether it be sci-fi or fantasy or science fantasy or something, but that's why I love Shakespeare. Characters like Laurel, where I get to fully expand outward. I think definitely, again, I loved, even though it was long 18-hour days and I'd be exhausted working on Laurel, that's so fulfilling. I went to bed like feeling like I really did something that day. And I love that there's an athleticism to the acting I'm doing. So yeah.
If you could do whatever you want right now, would you be feeling more like something in a fantasy imagination thing, or more like a Shakespearean, more traditional thing like that, like you like to work on?
I would say I'm gonna yes and the question, but I think it's that kind of hybrid where I think storytelling wise, I'm excited by new like fantasy, sci-fi, something that's heightened and metaphorical, that's set probably in a not so distant future or just a totally different world where we're getting to metaphorically explore kind of larger themes of what's going on in the world right now. But it is a character who probably lives in that Shakespearean heightened text. Maybe not I am a pentameter exactly, but either is a warrior or a warrior queen or someone who lives in just like a heightened place. And then the hope is, like I was able to do with Laurel, bring that softness and that vulnerability, and that, you know, it's a character that's written in a way that we then do get to see her inner life and her inner world, and get to be rooting for her even if she's not making perfect decisions. And getting to see that sort of, you know, the anti-hero who is also our hero, but in
an amazing character. No other character has ever been even close to that. Especially a Klingon character.
Yeah.
You know, they're always like Copland. It's a good
exactly.
You're deep, and it was like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, to see that come out of a Klingon character was just unbelievable. So I got to hand it to you and the writers, you know, wow, just to even go there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really felt that it was a symbiotic relationship between me and the writers, and that like they did get to know me a fair amount as Mary, and they saw what a feminist I was, and obviously they were liking what I was doing on screen. But it was amazing to see within that first season how much there was a conversation. Like, it wasn't overt. I wasn't like telling them what to write for me in the room. I was still receiving scripts, but I did feel the more that they got to know me on and off screen, the more that Laurel evolved into the character that we end up seeing on screen, which is very cool, because it can feel, especially with TV, it's like you're just going to get the script and then you're going to do what they ask of you. And in this case, and particularly because we were promoting the show and doing panels and they were seeing me in action talking about Klingons and feminism and all that stuff, I felt it all kind of swirled together in this amazing way. That's, you know, not always the case as an actor, the amount of which I felt like I did get to have that influence and impact.
Well, Star Trek, you have to love strong women, because you're not going to find other things. I mean, some of them are soft and some of them are loud, but they're all strong.
Yeah.
Their own way, you know. You can have Deanna Troi, who sure there's no one's soft there, but boy, she gets mad, you watch out, you know. So absolutely. You know, that's what I love about Star Trek, you know, is the just the overall inclusiveness of all of it, you know. And it goes all the way back to the early episodes where they touch on these things, and that's always what's been great about it. Yeah, what a joy it's been. Mark, really I could talk to her for 4 more hours if you want to talk right now.
No, I'm with you 100%. I can relate to, you know, I used to work as a fly on the wall extra, you know, on all these different TV shows, and I know about 18-hour days, and you know, what I love about you is you know, just impacting society so well, and what you've touched upon is so true, because like for me, when I was working on I worked on the show Pitch, and the director was Joanna Kearns. I grew up watching her on Growing Pains, and to see all these women directors, and it was about the first woman baseball pitcher. She pitched for the Padres. It was great. It was over at Paramount. You know, it was, you're seeing in today's, you know, TV so many impacting shows. And then I had the opportunity, I'm sure you're familiar with them, to work with Leslie Jordan and talk with him. I mean, I was working on American Horror Story Hotel, and what a guy that made such a difference in society. And I'm like, Leslie, I'm a big fan, you know, and he's like, he was just such a down to earth, like, hey, you know, really nice, unreal.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It's so, I think, down to earth. I think that's such an important point, just in general. I mean, the more that we can all be present with each other and be excited about the fact that we're creating things together, and that sort of energy on set, I think, is just so essential, because you don't want to get bogged down with so much of the technical and all that stuff, or it can be overwhelming, acknowledging that it's a lot, but that at the end of the day, it's about the human connection that we're all making with each other.
Sure.
Or your dad carried energy, and you carry energy, and you are carrying this energy with you. And you started at Star Trek, and you brought something, and that was a good place. That was a good place for you to start, because I think it's gonna probably go further one day once everything I think it's just getting revved up. But the way that you are off camera is just shows me why your character did so well, and I know you're going to bring that to anything you do in the future, and I'm just really, really excited to keep an eye on you. And you're just like beautiful and smart and talented, and just I cannot wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
So Mark, you have any more questions?
No. Hey, thanks so much.
Is there anything you'd like to
promote,
tell our viewers, as far as like if they want to get to know you, get to see what you're doing, anything at all?
Yeah, I would say number one, if you follow me on Instagram and Twitter, I'm mainly on Instagram these days at Mary the Chief, play on my last name, so just MaryThechief. I'll often be posting about things I'm up to. As I mentioned, we have our short film every morning that is currently doing the festival circuit, so it's not something that can be streamed yet. But that is something that, you know, at the right moment, there may be screenings in LA or elsewhere. You know, luckily that's the beautiful thing with festivals, and the fact that we're all, you know, everybody's all over everywhere now. So I'll definitely be keeping folks updated on where they can see that film, which we're very proud of. It's a queer sci-fi love story. It's something I'm just really, really proud of. And again, written by my partner, Maddie Goff, which has been a tremendous experience to be able to produce a work together and act together. And we actually just won Best Acting Duo at Indie Short Fest. Wow. And our composer won for Best Original Score. And we got Outstanding Achievement in LGBTQ Short. So that was our first awards. So we were very excited about that. And so hopefully more to come there. And then the Iago project I mentioned, the augmented reality, you can download the app on Apple or Android, and it's, if you type in Iago : the green-eyed monster, it'll pop up on the App Store. But we also have our website where you can learn more about how we created the piece and kind of the impetus behind it. And it's greeneyedmonsterar.com.
Nice.
And I can obviously follow up with y'all with that exact linkage if you'd like.
Oh yeah, we'll have it at the bottom.
Yeah,
we'll have it for everybody.
Yeah, and that's a project too where we have this finished product. We, you know, premiered at Tribeca and had a lot of success, but are, you know, hoping that it's something that can elicit more conversation down the line, that because it is an exploration of what would a Iago look like as a woman, what are microaggressions in the workplace, like there's a lot to kind of, it's a fun 3.5-minute song that's inspired by Shakespeare, but I'm excited to see where it continues to go, which is why I love directing people towards the website, because it has a little bit more. It has some articles with interviews about, you know, again, the impetus behind the piece. So I would encourage folks to look at that. And then otherwise, I think just, following me on the Instagram. We're hoping to be doing some more readings of plays, hopefully in the near future. Like I said, trying to get more theater in there. So I do hope that there will be theatrical things that I'll be able to say, hey, come to this reading or come to this performance in the near future. But yeah, I'm just grateful to talk with y'all, and it's
this is great.
Always, just really invigorating to be reminded of why I love this art, and that I've done some things that I'm really proud of too. So I really appreciate being able to speak to all of this with you.